Philippe, what's this finger? And what's the story with an onion?
So it's just like, me showing the piece of green onion, and I pressed the fingerprint, and you can see it says like control pwned.
Yes, if I understand right, this will survive reboots, reinstalls, everything. Is that correct?
Each board is unique and has its own keys. I was able to figure out how to modify the firmware from my device.
Do you have to physically open the laptop and do something, or is it like remote?
If I touch it like that,
oh no, just like that, right?
yeah, it like unlocks the computer. The demo I have will start like a reverse shell that gives you like system privilege.
Okay, so you do laptop reboots, you can get a reverse shell.
I'm using some session oracle to locate where like a session is stored, like existing session, so I don't mess with them. And then I make my own session and trigger one of the bugs that let me free the session. I make a fake session that I can free, and that corrupts the whole memory like in the system.
Yep. I really want to thank ThreatLocker for sponsoring my trip to Black Hat 2025 here in Vegas. It's fantastic to be here and meet so many amazing people. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, ThreatLocker, for sponsoring this trip and for sponsoring this video. Hey everyone, David Bombal coming to you from Black Hat with a very special guest, Philippe. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So Philippe, you work with Talos, is that right?
That's right.
So just for people who don't know what Talos is, just explain what that is and what you do there, because you've done some really cool research, which you're going to demonstrate in a moment.
Yeah, so Talos is like part of Cisco, right? And it's like kind of like the threat intelligence branch of Cisco. And what I do is vulnerability research. So my job is to find bugs in software, and I'm not looking at Cisco products. I'm looking at pretty much anything else.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good position. It's a really enjoyable work. And the idea is what we do is, or what I do is like find vulnerabilities, and then we notify the vendor affected so that they can fix their things. And eventually, once they publish like fixes, we can disclose all findings. Yeah. And the work goes also fed into like Cisco products so that all customers get properly protected against like emerging threats.
So that's great. So you paid basically to hack ethically, find vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's self-initiated, so I can pick some of the targets I want to look at depending on my curiosity or like what is meaningful for us, for our customers, and so on.
Philippe, what's this finger? And what's the story with an onion?
Oh yeah, so originally like that finger, it's just a plastic finger I got at DEF CON last year.
Yeah.
And so you can use it to like put on your hand so that it looks like it's an AI generated picture, because it's like an extra finger. But I used it as my demo to like, touch the fingerprint and trigger it because we modified the firmware of the board so that it would accept anything, including, that plastic finger. But just the plastic itself will not work with the fingerprint reader. But I taped a piece of green onion that I had in my fridge, because that's organic and that will trigger the fingerprint reader. But, clearly it's not a fingerprint, but because we've modified the firmware, it accepts everything, including, a plastic finger with some green onion on it. So it's just like, me showing the piece of green onion, and I pressed the fingerprint, and you can see it says like control pwned because I changed the description of the device over like that's being sent over USB.
So what you're going to demonstrate here, you're also demonstrating here at Black Hat. You've got a presentation about it, right?
Yes. So it's something called I call it like ReVault. And it's an attack on Dell laptops. They contain like this board.
Yes.
Not all the Dell laptops, but mostly like the business ones, so the Precision and Latitude.
It's like 100 or something, I believe.
100 different models, yeah. Not all the devices will have ControlVault. The idea of this board is to connect other peripherals, so like an NFC card reader, like a smart card reader, or a fingerprint reader. And so like if you have any of those, you most likely have like the ControlVault board to connect it to the motherboard of your laptop. And that's like where here it is, like it connects to the... It connects to the motherboard with this cable. And so, I found like a couple of vulnerabilities in that board. And it leads to like some cool demo called exploitation. You
got to show us a demo. I believe you got a really cool demo with a laptop, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's cute. It's a little, the laptop went to sleep. So I modified the firmware of like the same board inside the laptop, and it talks with the fingerprint reader of the device. The fingerprint reader is here. But I've changed it so that anything that could trigger the fingerprint will be accepted as a valid fingerprint for that user. And so like here's just like a pen, and there's like, like the little like stylus stuff for your phone. If I touch it like that,
Oh no, just like that, right?
Yeah, it like unlocks the computer, and because I'm a little sassy, I also changed the version string that's sent from the board to the laptop, and it says like control pound instead of control vault.
I like that.
And that's like kind of like my first proof. That was my first proof of concept, for myself to be like, okay, I've been successful. I was able to change the code running on this board, and it's like this modification can be permanent, and that's part of the vulnerabilities I found, like a way to do that.
Yes, if I understand right, this will survive reboots, reinstalls, everything. Is that correct?
Yes. So the idea here is I was able to get code execution on the chip and use that to leak secrets, key material that's stored in the fuse of the chip. Each board is unique and has its own keys. And by leaking those keys, I was able to figure out how to modify the firmware from my device, and the modifications like stay there. So if you reinstall Windows, like it's still modified because that's nothing to do with it, and that could be used, for like making like an implant type of situation. So the attack scenario for that would be maybe like a user get compromised by some threat actors, and the threat actor could corrupt that firmware so that even if the laptop gets cleaned up, you install Windows and so on, the thing could still be there and be used to like kind of get back into the system.
I'm sure a lot of people watching are going to ask this question. Do you have to physically open the laptop and do something, or is it like remote?
Yeah, you have to rip it out. No, so you can, there's like two ways to get there. One is just a software, like you run the commands on the machine and it gets exploited.
Okay, so if you get remote control of that laptop, or you get someone to run some code,
Yeah.
it rewrites that.
You can, it takes a couple of steps and you need to know what you're doing, but yeah, that's the idea. So that's one angle. And the other is you can actually open the laptop, remove the battery because the board is under it, and unplug that ribbon cable and plug it to another computer. I got on some like websites, like the same, the other side of that controller, like, I don't know if you can see here. It's like a 26-pin ribbon cable, and two of the pins are like USB. So by, with a little breadboard and thing, you can connect that to like a USB port and then like plug a USB cable. And so with, like my setup is a little messy, but, it could be made nicer. You can, directly connect to the board to a different machine and do all the attacks I have. And in that case, even if the Windows is encrypted, like full disk encryption and the thing, completely ignores it because you're talking directly with the board.
Okay, so hold a minute. You take that, you compromise it, you bring it to my laptop. My laptop's locked, it's encrypted, etc., and you plug it in and you can get around it.
No, it would be more if your laptop has that board in it, and I take your laptop, I open the laptop, and I mess with the board inside your laptop.
And you can bypass all the encryption, everything.
So there is two possibilities. Like in the demo we had here, like if you just turn on the laptop, there is no, it just starts, and it asks for like a fingerprint. So that would be one way to bypass it. But I also found when the board is malicious, you can send command back to Windows, and there's like ways to compromise Windows as well. So with that, if your laptop was encrypted and would ask for a password to start the computer, like maybe I wouldn't be able to bypass the login screen that way. But once once the system would start, and when you get back to your laptop, that malicious board could also mess with your system.
Wow.
The demo I have is you need interaction, so you need to send command to trigger the bug. But it was more to make it easy for me to make a presentation. But I would, from my understanding, there would be a way to have something be done automatically. But the risk is if I mess up on my one laptop, if it's automatic and it doesn't work, it's going to be really hard to fix it. So I didn't want to do that.
So I'm a bit slow. So just help me understand. In the first method that you mentioned, Windows is running, and then you doing something in Windows to send commands to the board. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. The way it works, that board is like a USB board, a USB device. So in your system, it appears like a USB device. And then you're going to have a driver that talk with the board over USB and expose a device file or something on Windows. And then a user-land application, so a program from a normal user, can load some DLL, some shared object that part of the API. None of that is documented, but you can figure it out. Load the file and the file expose commands, that are used by the Broadcom, the ControlVault software, like for legitimate purposes, and the exported function of that and the APIs will send commands to the board.
Wow.
And so by using those commands, which are meant for it, if you do certain things, little like crafty, well, it can lead to like code execution on the board.
So I leave my laptop. I don't lock my laptop. You get access to my laptop for a few minutes or whatever it is. You can run these commands, and from then on, if I reboot, whatever, you can control it.
Yeah, well, in theory, like you could put like an implant type of thing on the on that board. My demo is it's specific to the laptop I have, because that's not my job to go that extra mile, But because really what happened is like the system talks with the board sends bad data that triggers some memory corruptions and then load like an exploit. The demo I have will start like a reverse shell that gives you like system privilege.
Okay, so you do laptop reboots, you can get a reverse shell.
The way I'm demonstrating it is like I'm interacting with like one specific API, so it's a little complicated, but the fingerprint reader ties into Windows with something called the Windows Biometric Framework.
Okay.
And one of the DLL that is used by Broadcom to interface with that framework and connect the fingerprint reader can be exploited. And that one is like I made it so that if you send a specific command to the board, through those Windows Biometric Framework APIs, it will send the payload that will trigger the bug and start like a reverse shell. And that's indeed requires like user interaction to run that command.
Sure.
But I made it that way because it's better to manually trigger it, to not crash your system, because it doesn't work every time. So
that's normal with hacking.
Yeah, that's the proof of concept to showcase the list. Yeah.
Philippe, I'm glad you've got this. This is some of your demos, right? So perhaps you can like talk us through them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm using the ability to run arbitrary code on the board to leak some of the secrets that are stored on it, and in particular, like some key material that is stored in the fuse of the chip. And this key material is like critical to protecting the encrypted flash. So by leaking it, we can mess with the flash.
And that's how you were able to write your own code and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great.
The way it starts. I'm using some session oracle to locate where like a session is stored, like existing session, so I don't mess with them. And then I make my own session and trigger one of the bugs that let me free the session. I make a fake session that I can free and that corrupts the whole memory like in the system.
Yep.
And from there I can allocate new objects in the stead of the I freed like a chunk of memory, and with that I can tamper with the new object because the original object is still there, and feed that to a second function that has a different bug, which trigger a stack overflow, and that basically gives like code execution on the board. And then I call a function. It's an internal function of the firmware that is not meant to be invoked by anyone. It's like really internal to it, that retrieves the content of the key material like stored in the fuse of the chip. And at the end, we can see two keys. One is the AES key that's used to like encrypt the flash, and the other is an HMAC key that is used to like authenticate the content of the flash, so to make sure it's not tampered with as well.
Yeah.
And those keys are only for my device, so I'm not messing with I'm not revealing anything that could be like used by bad actors.
So it was 2 bugs, right? Was it like 3 bugs? Because it sounds like a whole bunch of things that you had to do.
So it's like for that it's like 2 bugs. The first one lets you free arbitrary memory in the heap, one of the heap of the flash. So like the heap is used to allocate the memory dynamically. Yeah. And the trick is because you can basically open a session, and a session is just like a chunk of memory, like they wrote like the SESS in the first 4 bytes of the session, and you get a pointer for that as a handle back to like the user. And when you close the session, it does what it does to close is make sure like the pointer is within the proper range of the heap and verify if the session tag is present. And if it's so, it's going to free the memory. But the tricky part is that you have other way of putting data on the heap, and so you can fake a session by just writing this session tag on the heap somewhere, and then you find it and you free that, and it's not a real session, and this way you can really mess with the heap. And because I didn't want to go too hard, like heap exploitation is like its own thing with like, you have to understand how the heap works. And it's like pretty complicated, but I found like other bugs, which was Stack Overflow, but it required a certain type of object that, I'm not sure, you may or may not be able to get it normally, but instead I used my heap bug to overlap two objects, which lets me tamper with the second object that's being overlapped and make it like malformed. And when it's being fed to the vulnerable function, it will trigger the Stack Overflow.
That's great. I love that. How long did it take you to work this out?
For those bugs, that was like probably like I would say like a few weeks.
Oh,
but
wow.
to get there, it took me quite a bit some time. Like the project was like a few months.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was pretty fun. But the problem was, if I do something wrong, because writing an exploit for this kind of thing is pretty tricky, it would crash the board, and I never found how to reset the board properly. So I would have to hibernate my machine to like power off the board and pour it back on, and it would like reset.
Oh, wow.
And it was like extremely tedious. And I'm sure there might be a better way to do that, but I couldn't find one. So every time I'd make a mistake, it would take like, I don't know, like 2 minutes to like get it back up and running. But yeah, I mean, it's better than like breaking it immediately.
Exactly.
But that also happened. Like I was trying to, tamper with the content of the flash, and I made my own blob of data that's used for like verifying like the code, and I flashed it wrong. I made it wrong.
Yeah.
And so the board would just like not start.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, what do I do now?
Like,
it's like it's
only
really
laptop, yeah.
It's really tedious, or like removing it. But I was kind of aware of like this kind of risk, so I'd made like a backup of the flash. I can show you like some picture of that. But there's like I have like this little programmer and a little clamp on that clamps onto like the flash chip. And originally I read the contents of the chip, and I was able to reflash it to fix it.
Oh, wow.
And then I arranged the data, I flashed it again, using only software like methods, right? And the time it worked, and that's how I got like permanent modification of the firmware. But yeah, the first time I was like, oh, I really broke my thing now. And it's like, I don't know how to recover it. It's really tedious. I had like that one board and another one spare, and that's it. So I was like, and that one I burned like immediately, like the first time I tried to do something with it. I put like 5 volt where it was expecting 3 volt, and it stopped working.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I have one spare. I need to be careful.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
We've got a third demo here, right?
Yeah.
So if you could explain what's going on here, Philippe, that'd be great.
Yeah. So at that point in the storyline, we were like able to modify the code running on the board, and what I did is I backdoored a function called like cv get object that returns objects for the system, the ControlVault, because it's a secure storage of objects.
Yeah.
And I made it so that if you ask for object number like 1337, like lit, instead of returning that, it will return a malicious payload that will exploit Windows and start a reverse shell. But for that, it needs to be like a modified firmware. So in that stage of the demo, like the firmware was already modified because it takes a while to do. And we just execute the attack where we request that object 137 through the Windows Biometric Framework. Because what I'm exploiting here is one DLL from Broadcom that is used to interface the WinBio framework of Windows with the fingerprint reader. And it turns out you can send a few commands to that. It's called like a storage adapter. You can send a few commands to that storage adapter, including one that will trigger the requesting object 137, and that will like receive that payload tailored for that stack of function, which will trigger like a stack overflow in the function, and eventually like kickstart like a rob chain attack to start whatever is in there. And in that case, it's a reverse shell. So we can see here like hard-coded in the implant was like starting netcat, which is like the reverse shell tool.
Yep.
And we can see on the right the Win Biometric Framework was running under like SVC host. and it's installed like a netcat, which is like a common tool for like networking sockets. And it's started like the reverse shell, and we can see that the reverse shell is running as system. So that's kind of like we've escalated to the highest privilege on the system.
That's great. These are great demos, man. I love these.
So it's really what's going on here. It's easier to start with the picture. It's you can connect the board directly over like a physical USB and interface with it. And the point of that is show like with physical access to the machine, you can unplug the cable and plug it into that contraption and go over USB. And that's the setup I have. It's really messy. Like sometimes you have to wiggle the wires, otherwise it doesn't work. But really, what it is a lot of power. So it's like a few like pins are like 3 volts, a few are like 5 volts, and then it's and ground, and then you have 2 wires for like the USB, and it connects somewhere to like the USB port.
Yeah.
And the first time I was saying is like I broke that board because I tried and I put 5 volts where 3 volts should have been, and it just like fried the chip immediately. And I was like, oh, my hope was like to design like a standalone board to do that without all the wires, but I ran out of time. So
Philippe, thanks so much for the demo. I really enjoyed that. That's great.
Me, yeah.
And show us your 5 fingers. I love it. So
flipping the finger to your viewers.
I love that. Well done.